Members of the Bricklayers Union are picketing a development project in Alston. The developer that took over the project last year, the Mount Vernon Company, plans 100 units of housing at the former Alston garage site on Griggs Street. The picketers say the company is disregarding earlier commitments on hiring union workers in Boston residents.
We, as both Boston residents and union representatives, participated in the development process of this project. We went to the BRA, we went to the local, the community meetings, and we spoke on behalf of this project. And we did so with the commitments of the developer to have the job go union, as well as have local hires from the city of Boston. Unfortunately, the developer, in this case, the Mount Vernon Company, has backed off all those commitments.
Instead of assembling workers that are highly trained, highly skilled, highly productive, who earn decent wages and decent benefits for their families. This is just the opposite. You've got this contractor that won this project, probably came in at less than half of what the normal price would be to do this project. And his workers are probably getting half of what the normal wages are in the industry.
They say you have to participate in order to make a difference. And we have participated, again, at every level of this development process. And if the commitments that the contractor made, in this case, are broken, what's to say that the next project where the developer makes commitments to local hires, to union contractors, union members, every developer in the city will now look at this project and say, why do I have to live up to that?
And joining us from the Bricklayers Union is one of the organizers, Tom McIntyre. Thank you very much for being with us, Tom.
Chris, thanks for having us.
First of all, talk about the history of this project, because this was approved, I think, something like almost 5 years ago with another developer back before the recession hit.
Correct. Like many projects in the city, this development took a number of years to come to fruition. At one point, the owner of this development, of this piece of land, was Leggett McCall, a development company that ended up going through the permitting process through the city of Boston, as well as the Boston Redevelopment Authority, and got approval for the project. And eventually they sold that project to the Mount Vernon Company. And the Mount Vernon Company is now developing the project.
Now, one of the things that typically happens in Boston, I've certainly been to a number of community meetings where this is the case, maybe an unflattering way to put it is sometimes organized labor runs interference for developers, because when developers present their plans, some people in neighborhoods say, oh, it's too high, there's too much on-the-street parking, and then the guys and some women from organized labor say, hey, we need the jobs. So did you do much of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think we participate, first and foremost, I think in terms of the city of Boston, the unions are as much a part of this city as any city in the country. So when we go to community meetings, and we go to them all the time, and we go to development meetings that are associated with these large developments in Alston, in Charlestown, in any growing community, and it's not just the union reps, but it is people from the community that happen to be union members. And we do everything we can to work within the interests of the community as well as the elected officials there. By the same token, we want to make sure that when that project is built, it's built with union labor. We have no shame in that. We believe that there's nothing wrong with having these developments built by people who have good wages and good benefits, as well as people that live in the city, okay? And so with this particular project, there was numerous community meetings. There's the Zoning Board of Appeals that the developer had to go through, as well as Boston Redevelopment Authority. And this process takes, in this case, years that we talked about. And part of that is commitments. The developer makes commitments not only to the community, not only to the elected officials, but also to the unions who advocate and show up. You know, there's a saying, if you show up, you can make a difference. And we show up, and we've made a difference. And so with this, Leggett McCall made commitments to use union labor, and as well as they shared the shared goal of meeting the Boston employment residency law, okay, which suggests to the developer, to the construction contractors that are building these buildings in the city of Boston, to include Boston residents.
Okay, I know this is 100 units, so it's one of those projects that maybe have a higher threshold as far as what at least the goals have to be.
Sure.
Any idea how close to the goals? I mean, maybe not that you're in a position to have all the data, but do you really know?
Do we know what the goal is?
Well, whether they've met the goal or come close to it?
Well, the job is just starting out. I could tell you this, they haven't met the goal to date. I've been on the project now for a couple of weeks, and I've pretty much spoken to all the workers on the project, and none of them are from Boston. But in the construction industry, the fact remains that without union labor in the city of Boston, you're not going to meet those criteria. You're not even going to attempt to meet that goal, okay, of city workers on these construction jobs. The fact of the matter is, out-of-town contractors come in with their own employees. That's the way the nature of this business is. And without an intermediary making sure that people from Allston, people from Brighton, people from Charlestown, people from South Boston get onto these projects, and that's what we do. That's what the unions are able to do through the infrastructure of our agreements with signatory contractors. It's what we do every day.
Now, we have a new company that has taken over this project. They were approved by the city at the end of last year, and their chairman, Bruce Pursley, says that they are going to have some union workers. He says the biggest vendor is going to use people from the Carpenters Union in this project. So does that really mean that this is a project that's woefully short on?
Well, in my opinion, there's a dramatic difference in a 100% union project to a 1 out of 15 union project. And by that I mean there's 15 different unions that consist in this city that build a building. The fact that they have a Carpenters Union is, I'm happy for them, but there are a lot of us sitting outside the gate, and what really infuriates me on this issue and what infuriates Local 3 of the Bricklayers Union is we stood at the Boston Redevelopment Authority. We stood at the local, and we called our members in Allston, and we went to these community meetings, and we advocated on behalf of this job. We advocated on behalf because we knew that it was a shared interest, and that we would have our members on that job. And the Carpenters did the same thing, but we're now on the outside looking in. The real issue here for the people at home to understand is, when it mattered, we were assured that this project would be 100% union. We were assured that the people on this project would make good wages and benefits. Boston is a very expensive city, and you can't survive here making $10 an hour, laying brick and block. And that's just a fact.
Now, this is 5 years after the initial approval. Some things have changed with the economy. The housing market in some places is very much in the upswing, but it's not what it was 5 years ago. So was it incumbent upon the union maybe to be a little bit softer on demands for pay, or what? What would you say?
What I would say to that is, in this case, Mr. Pursley, who owns the Mount Vernon Group, is doing quite well. I would say that because of the economy, more than likely, maybe this was going to be a condo project. But for those people at home that are unaware of this industry, many of the condominium projects that were going to be built simply became rental projects because it's a great rental market. Fifth best rental market in the country, it was just reported, with an average rent of $1,600, okay? So I don't think that cutting our wages is necessarily the way to go.
All right, one last question. You talked about not following through on the commitment. So who dropped the ball here? The developer, the city, or even the union? Who would you blame?
Fair question. I wouldn't say drop the ball. I would say the developer said to himself, I'm not going to live up to my commitments. I'm not going to live up to the commitments that were associated with the development, and let the chips fall where they may. And what we're doing is we're demonstrating that, you know, there is a price to be paid when you don't, when in front of the BRA board, when in front of the mayor's office staff, you make commitments and you don't live up to them, you're going to have to pay the price for that. And I hope that he has to pay the price.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate the time.
Tom McIntyre from the Bricklayers Union. We'll have more news in just a moment.